Here's my complete guide to setting up Live Studio in 2024. This will let you stream from your PC to TikTok. We'll cover requirements, setup, alerts, and more. And starting with requirements, here's a screenshot from the Live Studio Discord where they state that you need 3K for game creators and 10K if you're not a gamer. I'll put that Discord in the description. That said though, I've previously had accounts which have gained access at 1K, including this account which has since lost followers because I don't use it. On this account, what I did is I tried to make sure TikTok detected it as a game account, so you can see I put the word game in my bio, and on the first video that I posted, I put the hashtag gaming. So try that hack if you don't have access. You'll notice I've added a third one here which says more than 10K. I've sometimes seen people with more than 10K followers who still don't have access. If that's you, then you need to probably join a free TikTok Live agency and ask them to give you access. I'll put a link to a list of agencies in the description. In terms of hardware, you definitely need a mid-range PC or a gaming laptop if you're both streaming and gaming at the same time. If you're a Mac user, you can use Parallels. I'll put my full guide to streaming on TikTok from a Mac in the description. We'll also be using a webcam for this tutorial, but you can also use your smartphone camera. We'll talk more about that later. So just get started by downloading Live Studio from the link in the description, run through the installer, accept all the default installer options. You're now going to be prompted to log in. I usually find that the QR code option is the easiest login method. Regardless of your skill level, I suggest you click Setup Now under For Beginners. And on the first page, you're going to choose your microphone from the drop-down list, and you're going to choose your camera. I'm going to use my second lower quality camera for this. We'll come back to some camera settings and microphone settings later because we will need to tweak them. For now, I'll just click Next, and it's going to run a speed test. This can often be buggy, and anyway, we'll confirm the correct live stream settings on the next page. So I'll choose quality priority, I'll press OK. And if you don't have these settings which are on screen now, under video quality, click on customize. And as long as you've got about 15 meg or more upload speed, then I suggest these settings. If your internet is a little slower, maybe try the 720p preset. Once you're happy with your settings, click next. And we are now offered the option between landscape and portrait mode, but also a third option if you have an NVIDIA graphics card, which is compatibility mode. TikTok has stated that compatibility mode is coming to more GPUs and more countries. So if you can't pick compatibility mode, don't worry, just pick landscape or portrait and you can still follow through. Now we're going to get back to themes later, so I'm just going to choose default. I'm going to scroll down and click finish. And if you're offered some pop-ups, you can just close out of them. Before we look at anything else, if you do want to switch between compatibility mode, landscape and portrait, it's in the top left. You can just choose between the three. I highly recommend you leave it on compatibility mode. This lets the viewers choose which view they want to see. Now, in theory, you can see TikTok set up the stream for us, so we could just hit go live in the bottom right corner. However, we are missing some important settings along with some useful features, and it's also really good if you just learn how to set this up yourself. So in fact, what I'm going to recommend is we just right click each of these scenes and choose delete, and we're going to set this all up ourselves from scratch so we know what we're doing. In the bottom left corner, I'm going to click add scene, and I'm going to scroll down and choose blank and press add. And on the left, I'm going to right click blank one and rename it. I'll call mine main scene. You can name yours whatever you want and press enter to rename it. And then on the left where it says landscape scenes, I'm going to click edit, which is going to give us a larger canvas to work on. So let's start by setting up our screen, and we'll start obviously by adding our display. This is the simplest method of showing what you're doing on your PC. Of course, this is going to show everything on our screen, so be careful what you show while you're live. So let's click on add source underneath landscape scenes, and I'll click display capture, and I'll make sure sync to portrait scene is checked, and we'll press add. Now just find the correct display, make sure you are capturing the cursor and press add source. You'll now see on both our landscape and vertical canvas that the display capture has been added. Before we do anything else, on the left, you might want to right click display capture, choose rename and give it a better name. For example, if you've got multiple monitors, then name it monitor 3, or for example, give it the brand name of your monitor. So I'll just do that twice. I'll just say monitor 3 on both of these. And on the vertical canvas, you may wish to resize it. So on the left, I'm going to click on it underneath portrait scenes, and you can see it's now outlined in red, and I can drag these squares to resize it. And then I can just click on anywhere to guide it precisely, and you can see this red line now appears, so I know it's perfectly centered. I'm also going to leave some top space for my camera in the vertical mode. And finally, for our display capture on the left, I'm going to hover over it and press this lock icon, so now we can't click on it and accidentally move it around. So now let's add our camera in, but with the correct settings. What you saw earlier where it added your camera in was actually lower quality camera settings. At this stage, if you're looking to use your phone as a camera, then look at the link in the description, follow that through, then come back to this video. Anyway, let's get our camera added. Like I said, I'm going to add my lower quality second camera. So add source camera. Once again, sync to portrait scene. Press add and then find the correct camera from the list. Now you can see under resolution, it says 640 by 480. That means it's in 480p. Now most cameras are better than that, including mine. So this one can go up to 1920 by 1080, which means 1080p. So you've probably got either a 1080p or if you've really splashed out, you might have a 4K one. So pick the highest resolution. And likewise, make sure you pick the maximum FPS, which is usually 30 or 60. And we'll look more in depth at camera settings in a second, but for now this is fine. So I'm going to click on add source. And before I do anything else on the left, I'm going to right click, rename it to the name of your camera. So I'll just call mine camera 2, and we got to do it twice because it's been added in 2 locations. And on both my landscape and portrait scene, it's not in the correct place. So on the left, I'm going to click on camera 2 and I'm going to drag it down to center it. I'm actually also going to shrink it a little bit as well. And again, you can see we've got these nice red lines which are guiding us. So I know it's centered perfectly. And if I click onto the portrait one, you can see we've got these arrows here which stretch it to screen. So that has nicely expanded it perfectly to the screen size for me. So I just need to drag it into position. And then what I'm actually going to do is briefly unlock monitor 3, click onto that, and then just drag it up. And then once again, center it perfectly so there's no black space. I'll lock it back in place. So let's now look at a few camera tweaks you could make. Firstly, if I want to crop it. So for example, you can see I've got a green screen. If I want to crop out this side space, I can just click on it to get the red box around it, and I can hold Alt on my keyboard and drag these little red squares, and as you can see I can crop it however I want. Let's look at more camera settings. If I right click the camera or if I click this settings cog, we get back to these settings. If I scroll down a little bit underneath background, even if you don't have a green screen, you can remove your background. So watch this side here where my finger is. If I click on foreground, you can see it's been removed. It's not as good as the green screen option. So if you do have a green screen, use that green screen option. But it's not terrible. So if you don't have a green screen, use that foreground option to remove your background. Now, if you scroll down a little bit, usually these settings should be fine, but you can play with them if you want. This enhance one here, that's going to literally digitally alter how you look. I'm not a fan of that, so I'm not really going to go through that one. If we click onto appearance, you can add one of their pre-made borders to your webcam. So you saw at the start of the video, I had yellow power around mine. So I'll just choose that again, and we will look, by the way, at themes in more detail later in the video, but for now I'll press apply. And once again, so you don't accidentally change the way the camera looks, when you're happy, hover over it and choose the lock option on both portrait and landscape so you can't accidentally move it around. Now you've got a basic setup, but let's look at some of the other things you can add as sources to Live Studio. So let's click add source, and let's start with this one, which is goals. Now there's actually a more customizable version of goals called TikFinity, and we'll discuss that at the end, but for now we're focused on Live Studio's goals. Once more, let's make sure we are synced to the portrait scene, and we'll press add. And from here, we can set a helpful goal to help us increase followers, subscribers, or the number of gifts. So in our example, let's add a coin goal. I think 12 million coins is a bit of a steep coin goal, so instead, let's just make it 100. You can see by default, it says gift goal. If we want to change it, for example, I could go diamond emoji goal instead. And you can also trigger a sound when the goal is reached. I'm not going to do that, but you can choose from the 3 given by TikTok, or you can click this button and upload your own sound file. And if you want to preview that sound and what it looks like when you hit the goal, just hit the preview button. If I did have sound enabled, once I hit 100 here, it would play the sound. And once again, as you can see here, if I click onto the appearance tab, you can see it's added one of their themes. So that's the themes here, but you can also get their more basic goal, which I'm going to add by just clicking customize. You can also toggle turn on to customize it even more. I'm happy with the basic one, so I'll press add source. If you get this pop up, that's fine, just click OK. And the goals will now appear on the screen. As you can see, they're in the wrong place, so we need to move them around. Before I do that, on the left, I'm going to right click rename and change it to coin goal, because if you add multiple goals, it could get confusing if you don't rename it. And I'm going to click on the coin goal on the left and we'll move this one around. I'll move this one into the top left corner. Unfortunately, you can't shrink it any further down than this, so that's yet another reason to use TikFinity, which we'll discuss at the end. Anyway, let's click onto the portrait scene, and for example, let's try and move it into the top left corner. As you can see, it's got a red box which is blocking us, saying it'll be covered by chat notifications. If you still want to do that, if you still want to move it into the top left corner, or if you want to move it to the bottom, then what you got to do is use the arrow keys. So if I click on it, and if I now have to spam the arrow keys as well, I can't just hold it down, but if I spam the arrow keys, I'm sure you can hear my keyboard, I can now precisely move it up into the location that I want, even though TikTok was trying to stop us from putting it there. As per usual, let's make sure we don't accidentally click on it. So let's, on the left, lock each source. If you're finding this useful, then every single week I send over 1,700 creators free advice to monetize and grow their live streams. That includes things such as case studies of successful streamers, along with all of the latest streaming news for TikTok and beyond. So again, you can join that completely free. Use the link in the description. In a similar manner to these goals, we can also add alerts. So the way alerts works is if somebody follows, gifts, or subs, it pops up their name on the screen with a message. So we're adding a source, once again syncing to portrait scene. And you can set an alert duration, which is limited to 3 seconds. Yet another reason to use TikFinity, which we'll discuss at the end. I would make sure alert parries are off. That means all the alerts go into a queue and all of the viewers see the name on the screen when they follow, gift, or sub. And you can scroll down and toggle on or off the ones you want. You can also change the name of the text. It looks like TikTok's made a recent change. It used to stay started following you. If it does say that, I would delete the reference to the word you. That doesn't make much sense from the perspective of the viewer. And regarding these alert sounds, what I like to do is when the viewer sends you money, play the sound. When they're just following, when they're doing a free interaction, don't play the sound. So following is free. So I'm going to actually turn the alert sound off. So to do that, I can either just press the mute button, or on the drop down, I can just choose the none option. And then once again, you can scroll down and customize the gift alert. I'll leave the sound on for that. And you can customize the subscription alert. For example, you could have a different sound for the sub. If you want to preview any of that, just click the drop down and then press the preview button. And again, as you can see, I can customize the appearance of it. Let's try the neon light one. Again, if you want the more basic one, you can click customize, and this is the more basic look. Again, I'll go with neon light though. I'll press add source. Your settings will be changed after they are approved. So the alert is now on the screen. This is actually just a preview. Once you go live, this will disappear and it will only reappear when somebody follows, gifts, or subs. So place it wherever you want. On the landscape mode, I'm just going to put it right in the middle. So it basically prominently awards somebody for following, gifting, or subscribing. And on the portrait one, I'm going to click on it. It's put it off the side of the screen, which isn't helpful. And similarly, I'm just going to put mine in the middle of the screen. Depends what you're doing. You choose where it goes. And as per usual, on the left, I'm going to hover over it and lock it in place. You could rename this one, but I don't think this one needs renaming. Now let's briefly look at some of the other sources. If I click add source, you could also add a chat box and the viewer ranking. That's your top gifters. I don't see many people using these, so I'm not going to add them, but it's a very similar process to both the alerts and the goals. Now, what I do see people adding sometimes is images. So once again, if I click add source, choose the image option. Once again, I'm going to sync it to portrait scene. Click select file and find your image. I'm just going to add a random AI generated image. We'll delete it in a second. Click on add source, and once again on the left, rename it. I'll call mine AI image. So make sure you give it a sensible name, especially if you're adding multiple images. And once again, I would just click on it on the left and drag it around and place it wherever I want on each canvas. As I said, I'm not actually going to keep this, so I'll just right click and delete it for both landscape and portrait. Don't forget, if you want to crop your image, you can hold Alt and just drag the rectangles. Another source sometimes people add is the text one, so add source text. That one's pretty self-explanatory. Finally, you can also add a countdown timer. So if I add the timer in, I can choose one of the 3 themes. Let's choose the circular one. And if I ever want to start the timer, I go into the settings of the timer and just choose the start option. And of course, if you're adding any of these sources, I'm going to delete it, but make sure you once again lock them in place so you don't accidentally move them around. Now, before we look into themes, let's look at the audio settings. To do that, we have to come out of compatibility mode. So you can see just behind me, if I move a little bit, we click on go back. And towards the bottom left, next to this cog, we have the audio mixer. Firstly, let's make sure we have noise suppression enabled on our microphone. So next to microphones, click on the settings cog, should get this pop up. And under noise suppression, just check it. I'll just leave it on 50%. This is going to remove background noise such as computer fans or AC. I highly recommend every single person enables this, basically no reason not to. So I'll just press save on that one. If you are using a capture card, I've sometimes seen that you have to add the capture card as a microphone. So that is for people streaming from their console into Live Studio. Typically all the other audio settings, you've set them earlier, so they should be fine, but that is where to look at them. But now let's look at themes. So TikTok's added some pre-made themes for us, and we can access these with the button in the bottom left corner. One of my accounts can see 4 of these, but this account can see 8 of them. Don't know why. TikTok often likes to test new features on a small sample of people. So choose the theme you like the look of. I think it's a strange name, but I'm going to choose the yellow power one. So I'll just hover over it and click add theme. And you will see what it's done on the left side. You can see I've got yellow power full, yellow power all left, and yellow power camera only. And if you didn't have a blank scene, it's also going to add a blank one as well. If you want to delete any of these scenes that they've just added, you just right click and choose delete. So let's delete the camera only one, for example, and let's delete the all left one, which just leaves yellow power full. And then it's a process of tweaking any of the sources that it's added. I highly recommend if you're using the themes, you need to tweak your camera sources because as you can see, I've once again been downgraded to 480p. So let's go back up to 1080p. The rest of the settings look fine and I'll press apply and I might need to move it around to get it where I want. And as you can see, it's definitely messed it up on the portrait scene. So if I want to get it back quickly, I'm once again going to click stretch to screen and then reposition the camera where I want it. If you are seeing this mirror effect, by the way, that's fine. Obviously, that will disappear once you're live. So before we choose to go live, let's look at a few more things inside Live Studio, starting on the left with the live goal. And this is going to help us set up a gift goal. And this is complementary to the coin goal, so I highly recommend you do this. You can usually set a goal for 1 gift. So you would just click through and give it a title such as gift goal. Press the pencil icon and choose whatever gift you want. And you can choose a custom amount here, so we could set it to 69 roses. And when you're happy, just press save. Once you've done that, it should appear in the bottom left as the goal. And you can see I've also got a sub goal on the bottom left. You can click the subscription on the left to configure everything about subscriptions. Now, if we move over to the right, let's hit this little settings cog on the right. And we've got a whole load of different chat settings. Most of these are fine. You can see I've had to stop the children from typing stupid stuff by banning a few specific words. But typically you can leave these on the defaults. You can click onto moderators, and I highly recommend that you add in some trusted viewers, family and friends as moderators. And crucially, I also recommend you make an alt account and add that as a mod. The reason I'm suggesting that is because that is one of the best ways to view your chat while you're live. So let's look at all the different ways you can do that. Firstly, if I click this pop out, you can see the chat has now been popped out. If I press the lock icon, it's now locked in place. And what this does is it locks the live chat above every other program that you've got open. So it's really useful if you've only got one computer screen, you'll still be able to read your chat. If I unlock briefly and click into the settings cog here, you can see I can reduce the background opacity if it's getting in your way. However, this is not my preferred way to view chat. Let me close out of it. As I said, my preferred way is just view the chat from your phone, view it from an alt account, make sure the alt has moderator permissions. Or alternatively, if you do have a second screen, just put Live Studio on your second screen. And just briefly regarding multi-guest, co-host and live battles, there is no live battles right now, and the multi-guest and co-host, I think those are currently audio only. I'm sure as 2024 develops, TikTok will look to add live battles and camera co-hosting and camera multi-guest. but unfortunately the PC side of TikTok Live seems to get updates last. Finally, let's go live. So we'll hit go live in the bottom right corner and we'll get this pop up. The cover image really isn't that important. Hardly anybody sees it. We have to choose a topic, so let's choose gaming and Fortnite. Let's say we're doing a Fortnite stream. Give it an attractive title and fill out your About Me section to explain what's going on in your live. And we've configured all of these other settings earlier on, so everything else should be fine. You're now ready to go live. Now earlier on I mentioned TikFinity, so this is an alternative to the goals and the alerts. So if I just quickly add in a TikFinity alert, I'm going to show you what a very basic TikFinity follower alert looks like, but this is highly customizable. So here's a basic TikFinity follower alert. You can get really advanced with these alerts. You can play sounds, videos, audios. Basically, your imagination is the limit with TikFinity alerts. So on screen right now, I'll put my quick start guide if you want to set up TikFinity in 4 minutes. I'll put my deep dive, and if you're ever having issues with Live Studio, I'll put my guide to fixing Live Studio. Subscribe if this was useful, and thanks for watching.